From Pod World Headquarters, this is the Carolina Insider from Learfield, presented by Give UNC, Carolina's annual day of giving. Make this March 29th a day like no other by supporting the causes that inspire you the most.
We're back. Time for another edition of the Carolina Insider. Jones and Adam here with you. Adam, it hadn't gotten any less sweet. I think it's gotten sweeter.
I was going to say, I think it might be a little sweeter each day.
It's just gotten better and better and better. Carolina, of course, beating Duke 94-81. If you want all of our talk about the game itself, we talked about it in an emergency pod that came out late Saturday night. We're going to talk a little more about it, don't worry. But if you want our immediate reactions, it's back then. We'll talk a little bit more about the game, look ahead to the ACC tournament. This will be our only pod this week. All ACC teams are out, and the Tar Heels got absolutely robbed. No big deal. We'll talk about it. One vote for Hubert Davis for Coach of the Year. Who voted? I wonder who that was, Adam. Wonder who that was.
Release the votes.
Seems to me like that's the only one who got it right. What a handsome voter I bet that man is.
One smart person and 79 imbeciles.
I bet that guy is fun at parties. Bet whoever voted for Hubert Davis is really in great shape.
The way he voted makes me think he's handsome.
Don't know this for a fact, just a guess. Probably has a perfectly manicured beard that friends of the pod like Lindsey Carroll really enjoy. These are just all guesses. I don't know. So we'll talk about that. And it's our annual interview with Bryan Kersey. I have to say, I felt like this. I mean, I always enjoy our time with Bryan Kersey. And I think you could go, oh, well, talking to him again. But every year I feel like I learn something. Every year I feel like he gives us great stuff. And this is no different. And if you remember, of course, we took some questions from you guys, and I thought those were probably the best part of the interview, was him answering some of those type of questions that I think are real questions that a lot of people have. And so as it always is, I think it's a really good interview, which also, Adam, means that there will inevitably be some kind of officiating controversy in the ACC tournament, including the Tar Heels, that then everybody will tweet at us and say, ask your boy, Bryan Kersey, why X, Y, and Z happened. So looking forward to that, too.
I definitely like the questions because it's something you don't get to ask questions about very often, if at all. So it was nice to hear what are on people's minds, and it was nice of Bryan to answer them.
We've got I think it's a story from Saturday from our friend Candace, so that's coming up soon, too. Adam has a list, I'm sure. Adam, what's up?
It's been a really good 48-plus hours. I have rewatched the full game twice and the second half 3 times. And I got to say, it's better every time because you notice little details each time you go back. Jay Williams calling timeout, sneakily one of my highlights of the game.
He did want that timeout.
I bet he has gotten an angry call.
I heard Jay Williams on whatever show he's on Monday morning saying that he thinks Kay didn't take that timeout that he was asking for because he was using that as a learning experience for his guys to be able to fight through it later on.
You know, nobody ever said that about Roy Williams when he didn't take a timeout. There's, he doesn't know how to coach.
Okay, so before we get to anything, I mean, it's also great, but we're brought to you by Give UNC. Give UNC coming up later this month. Mark your calendars. March 29th. It's the day to help Carolina attract the very best student athletes in the classroom and on the field of competition. Join fans from North Carolina and beyond by making a gift in support of your favorite Tar Heel team. Again, it's March 29th. If you'd like to learn more, giveunc.unc.edu. giveunc.unc.edu. Adam, this is my favorite spin zone so far. And I think we talked about this on Saturday. I can't remember. I was in a haze of happiness. Let's go to the pretend time period that I'm speaking as a Duke fan. And to do this, probably need some music underneath to really make me get into character here.
I still hear your voice when you sleep next to me. I still feel your touch in
Well,
my dreams.
I remember a time in this great rivalry when Carolina was playing for championships. I think if you're happy that that's where your program is now, that just a win over Duke in the regular season makes your I guess that your program's in a sad place. I don't know what that's like. We're competing for championships. I am Johnny Duke fan. All right, guys. Jones is back. Johnny Duke fan's gone. Adam, I love this argument. I love it. Let me drink the tears of this argument. Because this argument somehow acts like Carolina, that the excitement of this game is simply because Carolina beat Duke. I love the fact that the self-centeredness makes this believe that this is the case. We all know beating Duke anytime for Carolina is sweet, just like I'm sure beating Carolina when your Duke is sweet. That's not even in the discussion. We all understand that. But there's been plenty of times that Carolina's had a team that on paper isn't as good as Duke, and the Tar Heels have won the game. I mean, just on top of my head, 2003, Matt Doherty's last year, the game where Raymond Felton almost went over there and ended the entire Duke bench. 2001, Matt Doherty's first year. Duke won the title that season, and Carolina won over in Cameron. So, I mean, and those are just two that just popped into my mind right now. And there's times when Duke hadn't been as good as Carolina and won the game, like 2012, Austin Rivers game. Duke won as good as Carolina that year, but they won the game. It's not about winning that one game. Of course, beating Duke is always great. No, Adam. This is about proving on a much grander scale about what's right in the world and what's wrong in the world. And how when you purposefully put all the spotlight on yourself and feel like you can tell everybody else what to do, how to feel, what's right, what's wrong, that eventually, Adam, in the immortal words of Rasheed Wallace, Adam, ball don't lie. That's what this is about. And I'm already tired of hearing, well, yeah, I mean, this is not what Coach K's like. He does not like this spotlight. Then stop it. You could have stopped it. At any time, they could have stopped it, Adam. Even if they made the announcement in April with Cascada and you're clapping your hands, even if you thought it was or June or whenever it was, even if you did that, and then in hindsight you go, you know what, guys, this probably wasn't the right way to do this. No one would have said anything. I mean, well, people would have still said something. You didn't have to let ESPN do what it did. Oh, it's the media that's doing this. It's the media. Somebody's got to let them do it. You let them do it. You fed into it. You accepted it. I will forever, my opinion, don't know if Duke feels this way. I will forever believe if they could do it again, they'd have some kind of postseason weekend like and I'm not saying Carolina does everything right, but like Carolina did, both for the 100-year celebration and when Coach Williams got the court named after him. That was in the offseason. Like, Mike Krzyzewski's last game in Durham, I get that it's important to Duke people, but it didn't have to be the entire focus of the sporting world. It didn't, and they could have stopped it. So don't tell me now that was too distracting. You are the ones who caused the distraction. And if your own decisions then came back to bite you in the end, isn't that a shame?
That's the end of the pod. Thanks, everybody. I'd like Tom Cruise from A Few Good Men to put Mike Krzyzewski on the witness stand, similar to Jack Nicholson, and say, Mike Krzyzewski, do you have complete and total control of your program? And Mike Krzyzewski would say, of course. And Tom Cruise would say, well, did you order the code red? No. I didn't order everyone to make this about me. No. Well, Mike Krzyzewski, if you have complete and total control of your program, and if you did not order the code red, Why was the code red executed? Why did, for example, they cover up the Duke logo inside Cameron Indoor Stadium with the 1K logo?
Adam, they all had a K logo on.
Why did all the assistant coaches wear K pullovers? Why did every single alumni, other than Steve Wojciechowski, who I now have 1% more respect for,
Yeah, he wore a Duke pullover.
why did they all wear K shirts?
Adam, if you want to have an off-season weekend and give everybody a K t-shirt, nobody's going to care. Because if that's important to Duke, great. But don't do it. Don't do it now. That's the fatal flaw that they never saw. And it makes it so funny.
Why, right on the box score of the game, is the 1K logo in place of the Duke logo? I mean, don't get me wrong. You made me treasure that item for the rest of my life, which I appreciate your hubris in doing so. But just this one day, we are to believe that Mike Krzyzewski lost all control of the Duke program and people just ran roughshod over him. Because we all saw after the game, certainly he doesn't like being in control. He wouldn't do something like tell the crowd to be quiet so that he could address them properly. No one believes this. Who actually believes this other than ESPN?
Adam, I don't know how this script got flipped and it became all of it became the most perfect thing to ever happen for everyone else. Carolina was America's team. I mean, I know the Tar Heels, they're a national program. There's plenty of people who dislike Carolina just because it's Carolina. I get that. They were America's team for one night, and it was incredible.
I mean, all you need is...
I can't even. I'm like worn out from just being so giddy.
All you need is, how did Roy Williams go out? Everybody sat there and kind of elbowed each other and was like, wait a minute, did he just kiss the court? What did he just do? I'm not sure what just happened there. I'm really not sure what occurred. Versus, let's have a 45-minute post-game ceremony, position all the chairs at the free throw line, focus the spotlight down on midcourt. The head of the GAA or whatever is going to give about an hour-long speech. Well,
at least, dude, Adam, they won't put teams like celebrating conference championships. They move it to ESPN Plus.
Right.
They put this on ESPN. On some dude droning on about nothing.
On ESPN 1. Like the main ESPN. After they totally missed the pregame part that they had been talking about since 9 a.m.
Look, Kansas, I know that we've had some moments in our history where we haven't gotten along, but I just want to say I always knew that you were kind of that we are distantly related to one another, so thank you.
I was trying to think when I was rewatching the postgame ceremony, which I enjoyed. Can you think of anyone else in sports that ESPN would have run that live the way they did?
Well, Adam, the answer is yes, but with a caveat. They would do it for like Bill Belichick, I think, or Nick Saban.
The whole ceremony?
But here's the thing, Adam. Neither Bill Belichick nor Nick Saban would allow it to happen. That is the difference in all of this. They wouldn't let it happen. Just like we know Roy Williams, we know Dean Smith. Who else would let this happen? Did Jim Calhoun let this happen? Will Jim Boeheim let this happen? Name any of them. None of them would let it happen.
I think what made it best as you watch the postgame ceremony was that it just slowly washed over you that they had absolutely no plan if they lost. No one had ever thought about it. It had never crossed their minds.
Well, I mean, the Tar Heels were not discussed as part of this game one bit. Not one bit. And it turned out that that was the best thing that could have ever happened for Carolina. It was all so sweet. And there's still basketball to be played. And if Carolina and Duke play again, Duke might win by 100. But, Adam, it'll never take away. Again, it's more than just winning the game versus Duke. So when inevitably your Duke friend says that to you, just remind them that's not what it's about. It's not just a 94-81 final. Yes, of course, that's nice. It's about so much more than that. And I will say one more time, if they did this in May and had all their former players come back and they play a round of golf on Friday at the Washington Duke Inn course or whatever it's called over there, and then they have a big dinner on Friday night, and then there's a big ceremony on Saturday where they give him his bench. Sweet idea.
Joey Baker would like to present this to you.
The annual Joey Baker Senior Night bench. If you want to do that, that all makes sense to me. Like, again, Mike Krzyzewski's won more than 1,100 games. He absolutely is one of the best coaches to ever coach the game. We all get that. What nobody wanted, like, nobody else wants it. Can you imagine being a Kansas fan and you're, like, playing for the Big 12 regular season title and your game goes to split screen
in overtime
to watch Mike Krzyzewski walk out of a tunnel, not to watch a game, Adam, not to watch another game, to watch Mike Krzyzewski walk through a tunnel of his former players. That's why they don't get it. That's why I'm sure there's somebody at ESPN today going, guys, I don't understand why people didn't love this. They don't want it. Just because you can't make me want it. I don't want it. And I know this is a stunner. Most people don't.
Why does ESPN want it? I don't understand that.
I don't know, but Adam, that kind of flips this to this next chapter of I am going to be fascinated to see what happens now. You already start seeing a little bit of this armor getting like chopped away, just a little bit. And I don't know anything about Jon Scheyer other than he was a very solid college player, won a championship at Duke, seems to be a good recruiter. I'm sure he's a good coach. I don't know anything else about him. But Adam, it will not be the same. It will not be. Because there's this fear. There's a fear of Mike Krzyzewski from internally there at Duke. I think I don't know. That's my opinion. I do feel like I know from the media there's this fear and reverence, and that's going to be gone. Duke basketball will still be a good basketball program and team, but it will be different.
Okay, well, since you brought that up, I have a question. You mentioned that a couple media members have mentioned since Saturday that the seating arrangement at Cameron Indoor Stadium is not conducive to working, and that now that Mike Krzyzewski is gone, that should be changed. Wait a second. What? First of all, that's 100% correct, which we've been saying for a decade plus.
It was correct 20 years ago.
In what way does Mike Krzyzewski being the coach have anything to do with the media seating arrangement?
Adam, I would like to go back to your analogy of Tom Cruise in A Few Good Men. There is one person that has complete control, and absolutely no one will challenge that. But that time is about to come to an end.
Doesn't it make it look worse that you finally decided to stand up and make this point now? Anyone who knows anything knows it's been like that for forever. But you never, not one time, never, any time I've ever said this, people acted like I was nuts. Look, let's talk about the handshake.
Yeah, let's do it.
Here's what happened. You might not have gotten to see this, or maybe it was in split screen, so you didn't get a full view of it in Dolby Theater production like ESPN intended. Duke had 100 guys on the court, all wearing their K shirts, alums, so that Mike Krzyzewski could walk through the tunnel of love to get to the bench.
I am officially calling it the tunnel of love from this point forward.
So the tunnel of love stretched all the way from the Duke locker room, which is at one corner of the Coach K court, to the opposite corner where the Coach K bench is on Coach K court, presented by Joey Baker. So Coach K had to walk from locker room corner through the tunnel of love to the bench. Well, here's the problem, folks, that I don't think anyone considered because no one really realized the Tar Heels were even there. The Tar Heels locker room is in the same corner where Coach K bench on Coach K court presented by Joey Baker is located.
That's true.
So when the Tar Heels came onto the court, nobody thought of this. There's the tunnel of love right there.
Yep.
And they all had on the same K shirts, every single one of them.
Except Steve Wojciechowski.
I think at this point, Wojo did have on his Coach K shirt. He took it off for the game.
Man.
I respect you,
What a
Wojo.
A lone wolf.
I'm sure I don't know what happened, but I respect you 1% until I find out otherwise. So here comes the Tar Heels onto the court. Well, here's some trouble, folks.
Side note, Adam's Tar Heels coming out on the court and Adam's version of Teddy V walking around, sashaying are very similar to one another.
Also, for some reason, there was circus music when the Tar Heels came on the court because Cascada had not been played yet.
Right.
So they come on. Well, here's 100 Duke alums all wearing the exact same Coach K shirt, blocking the way for Carolina to get out. So the Tar Heels have to kind of go around. Well, at that point, what is Hubert Davis supposed to do? Is he supposed to shake hands with all 100 of the Duke alums wearing their Coach K shirts? What is Hubert Davis supposed to do? Shake all these 100 Duke alums' hands until he gets to Chris Carrawell and suitably greets to Chris Carrawell's satisfaction the fourth Duke assistant?
I was about to say, Chris Carrawell's not even a assistant, right?
I didn't even know he was on the staff. But it's always safe to assume, is Duke player X on staff? It's best to assume yes. So
that's only cool when the Tar Heels do that, Duke.
That's different.
Chris Carrawell is on staff. Excuse me. I got confused. I was thinking Nate James. It was Nate James who's no longer on staff. Excuse me. I got Chris Carrawell and Nate James confused.
Coach Carrawell, we apologize. So Hubert Davis did seek out Mike Krzyzewski to shake his hand before the game, which surprising that there was time for that in the script because that was right after who knows what. Apparently, he didn't shake Chris Carrawell's hand. That's what Chris Carrawell says. He couldn't because of all the shenanigans that were occurring.
This Adam's absolutely accurate in what he's saying. Because since Adam had been kicked out of his original seat,
right.
I had texted Adam and said, is Hubert Davis even going to be able to get out of the Tar Heel locker room? Because, and this is not unique to this game, the Tar Heels come out, the coaching staff comes out, and then Hubert Davis normally takes like 2 minutes or something for just a moment for whatever he wants to do. I don't know what he does. Does he sit there and talk to himself? Does he use the bathroom? Does he fire himself up? I got no idea. He uses that time to do whatever he wants to do before he comes out to the sideline. So he comes walking through, and Adam's description is 100. I can verify Adam's description that this is exactly what happened. So by the time he gets through all the throng, he's right there by Coach K, and he shook his hand. There's documented evidence of this.
It makes me incredibly happy to think that there's no other explanation other than Chris Carrawell was sitting there during the game stewing about this. Like, I'm going to show that Hubert Davis.
Well, Adam, I'm just going to ask you one question that I think answers this whole debate. If Duke had won that game, would Chris Carrawell have shaken Hubert Davis's hand?
Chest pads for everybody.
So, the end.
Everybody gets
the end on that argument.
And look, I don't know Chris Carrawell at all, but I remember when he played, and he seemed to be an okay guy. Like, he wasn't Grayson Allen,
right?
Who was also there. And by the way, a little reported fact: you got 100 Duke alums there who can shoot a free throw for charity. Let's pick the one most iconic Blue Devil with Christian Laettner sitting there to take a free throw for charity on the most important night in the history of planet Earth. Who are we going to pick? Grayson Allen.
I really was surprised. And not that any of this matters, but I wonder if they just pick somebody who's like currently playing. They're like, I don't know if Christian Laettner's taking a free throw in a while. We'd hate for him to miss it. But isn't Laettner number one Duke guy? I mean, like from the player perspective, even now,
is Laettner like our Phil Ford? Where like a certain generation is like, oh, that's the guy.
Right.
But then the new generation's like, I love that Jason Tatum. That is what happened with the handshake. Hubert Davis does not have a long-held vendetta somehow against Chris Carrawell. It seems like Chris Carrawell has like a 2-hour vendetta against Hubert Davis. I think Chris Carrawell is probably an okay person. But he should have thought that through because it made Duke look bad, which really we didn't need any more of. But it was nice to have that little cherry on top of the sundae.
What a night, what a win. And again, don't let him tell you it was just about winning this one game. It's not just about winning a game versus Duke. That's not what it's about. I mean, that part's nice. Don't get me wrong. And it was a great win for this. And from the Tar Heel perspective, don't let that get overshadowed by the fact that Carolina went in and for this team this year won a huge game against a great team and went in there and won the game in a game that helps Carolina in so many different ways, as you know, from following the Tar Heels. So from the Carolina perspective, there's that part of it. But that's not why there is such excitement from the Tar Heel fan base. I think all Tar Heel fans are excited for this team this year to do that. But then there's the whole nother layer to the story, which is why it is so much bigger.
We all understand Carolina Duke, and that the part of the fun of it is there's always the next one. And so anytime you win one in that series, you're like, oh, there's going to be a next one. There's never going to be a next one of those. Yeah. That's it. That's the only one ever. That's the only one. And Carolina won 94-81, and then there was a post-game ceremony.
Now, Adam, let's turn the page a bit. And by the way, we've had a lot of people ask if we can tell the story about why Adam got kicked out of his seat. We're going to hold on to that. We'll tell you one day. Today's not the day. It's not the time.
I would like to state for the record that I don't think I was in the wrong in that situation, and people seem to agree with that.
He's a rebel is really what it comes down to.
I did get to stay in the building, which was the first Tar Heel dub of the evening, soon to be followed by a much more enormous dub.
So, Adam, let's turn the page to all ACC. So, Armando Bacot, leading vote getter on the first team, but does not win Player of the Year. That goes to Alondas Williams of Wake Forest. Steve Forbes, Coach of the Year from Wake as well. I don't know how close the Player of the Year voting was. I didn't see that. The Coach of the Year vote really wasn't close. Mike Krzyzewski got the second highest votes, and it wasn't even half of what Steve Forbes got. And I don't think Steve Forbes is a bad choice. I didn't vote for him, but I don't think that's a bad choice. It came down to two people, and I voted for the other one. But Steve Forbes is an 100% defensible choice, and I do think he's done a great job at Wake Forest. Wake was bad for a long time, and then they weren't very good last year. And then now they have certainly become, and they smoked Carolina when the Tar Heels played them. They are now an upper part of the league team. They're they're a good team. Again, defensible choice. Alondas Williams, defensible choice too. I just think it's the wrong one. Steve Forbes, I have a hard time saying that's the wrong choice. I do think Alondas Williams is the wrong choice, although, again, it's not so egregious that I think any argument is crazy. I just think it's the wrong one. I think it should have been Bacot. That's who I voted for, but my votes didn't only counted for one, as we know.
The voting was 41 Alondas Williams, 31 Bacot, 6 Banchero. So 6 people watched ACC basketball and thought Paolo Banchero was the best player all season long. We could probably name them. 41-31, that's pretty close. I was surprised that 2/3 of the votes came in after the Carolina Duke game. I really thought people who held their votes would be more likely to vote for Armando Bacot, and maybe they were. I do wonder what else he could have done in that game to make you think he was the Player of the Year, or honestly, what more could he have done all season long? I guess have a better game head-to-head against Alondas Williams. That seemed to be important, I guess. I do think it's a little odd that the big thing Wake pushed for Alondas Williams, the criteria they thought was most in his favor, is not currently true.
Yeah, that he was the leading scorer and assist man. I think that's what you're getting at. And he didn't end the year as the leading scorer. Buddy Boeheim did.
But I think so many people got that in their head. Oh, Alondas Williams is doing something that's never been done before. Well, he might still. I think it goes through the ACC tournament. But as of today, that's not true. He didn't do it. Still no one's done it. So I think unfortunate for Armando Bacot, who that would have been a really big deal for him, of course. And recognize all the work he put in and how well he played all season long, especially here in the last month or two. He was great.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll fire him up for Brooklyn.
Well, and no other Tar Heel made an All-ACC team, which did surprise me. I thought either Love or Manick, I thought one of those two would make a team. I had Love on my second team. So I was surprised that neither one of them made it. I think it speaks to two things, Adam, and I already told you this. I think one is the narrative around the Tar Heels this year was that no matter what they did, it had been determined by January that they weren't very good. And so, and Carolina wrote some of that itself by the blowout losses that it had, even the bad loss to Pitt later in the year. The Tar Heels wrote that narrative themselves. I think people stopped paying attention and didn't see this team getting better as the year went on. And then, for example, that loss to Pitt was probably a nice check-in for people who voted. Oh, yep, they're still not very good. So I do think that narrative hurt Carolina. Not one of my two original points, but 1A. There are a ton of players, and there's just so many teams. So it is hard. There's just a lot of good players, and there's a lot of good players that aren't going to get on one of these, like John Hughley from Pitt, for example, just another good player that, if I'm not mistaken, didn't make one of the All-ACC teams. Jordan Usher from Georgia Tech's a good player. He didn't make any of these ACC teams. There are just a lot of teams in limited spots. So that is kind of my 1A. And then my second point is I do wonder if the Tar Heels kind of cannibalized themselves a little bit with Davis, Manick, and Love, all three of them having impressive stats, impressive games. And I wonder if just so you did have so many choices from the team of North Carolina, if outside of Bacot, which everyone understood was Carolina's most consistent player this year, if those votes, if somebody was thinking, well, you know what, I need to put somebody else from North Carolina on here for sure, and then those votes got split up between those guys, that would be a logical conclusion to me.
I do think there's a bit of inconsistency. If Carolina only had one All-ACC player this year, wouldn't that mean the coach did a pretty good job?
Yeah.
Duke's got 3 players on the 3 All-ACC teams, and the second-place finisher and Coach of the Year was Mike Krzyzewski. Well, 60% of his team was on All-ACC. Wake Forest had 2. Jake LaRavia, who we know is an unbelievable player. We saw it firsthand. And Alondis Williams. So, again, Steve Forbes is a good coach.
Yeah.
I'm surprised there was only 1 vote for Hubert Davis. I do think what you said is right, that I think people couldn't decide who the most important Tar Heel other than Bacot was. There wasn't one clear-cut number 2 Tar Heel guy to vote for. And I think some people can't bring themselves to vote for more than a couple. So I can't vote for all of them. I got to pick one, and everybody likes something different. Like some people like big late game heroics, and they voted for Caleb Love. And some people like tough little nuts, and they voted for R.J. Davis. And some people like big shots, and they voted for Brady Manick. So, but in the end, I hate it for those guys individually because that would have been a nice reward for them to have for the work they put in and the way they played. Does it make a ton of difference? No. And I think it also speaks to some of the things we already think and believe about some of the outside perceptions.
First team, Bacot, Alondis Williams, Banchero, McGusty, Boeheim. That's what I voted for first team. I think that was the right first team.
That's a good 5.
Second team, Aluma, Sebron, Wendell Moore, Blake Wesley from Notre Dame, LaRavia at Wake. I know I had all 5 of those guys on one or on the second or third team. I can't remember what order I had them. I know I had Aluma, Sebron, and Wesley on the second team for sure. I can't remember about Moore and LaRavia. Third team, Goodwin, Mark Williams, Isaiah Wong, Jaden Gardner, Michael DeVoe. I know I had 4 of those 5 on either the second or third team. The only one I didn't have was Jaden Gardner, and I had Love on the second team. So I think for the most part, at least from my perspective, not that that's the most important one, but here on our podcast, those were pretty much the ones I thought too, other than, again, I did think Caleb Love was the one I chose for another Tar Heel on one of these teams. Honorable mention, Caleb Love, Adams boy P.J. Hall, John Hughley, Charlie Moore, Brady Manick, Kihei Clark, A.J. Griffin, Paul Atkinson from Notre Dame, Terquavian Smith from State, Reese Beekman from Virginia. All players that had good years in different ways. Player of the year, Adam told you those, Williams, Baycott, Banchero. Freshman of the year, Banchero by a wide margin. I think that makes sense. Wesley, Terquavian Smith, Trevor Keels also got some amount of votes. Defensive player of the year goes to Mark Williams. He was joined on the all-defensive team by Reese Beekman, Leaky Black, Charlie Moore, Wendell Moore from Duke. Those are the 5 I voted for the defensive team. I did vote for Leaky Black, Defensive Player of the Year. He came in third in that regard with 7 votes. Most improved player, Sebron and P.J. Hall were the 2 right there at the top. I voted for Sebron because there was such an enormous jump in his numbers. He was somebody who, at least in my mind, didn't play very much. Although the same story can be told for P.J. Hall. Didn't play very much and then became the dominant player on that particular team. I think those were the 2 clearest choices, and it was a very close vote. 6 Man of the Year, Matthew Cleveland from Florida State. That's who I voted for as well. L. Ellis, Anthony Walker, Kadeem C., Caden Shedrick, Quentin Post, Cam Hayes. All got at least 1 vote. Coach of the Year, Adam told you, Forbes, Krzyzewski second, Bray third. And then all rookie team. This was the easiest one to do. This was an easy vote. Banchero, Terquavian Smith, Wesley, A.J. Griffin, Keels. So you had 3 Duke players, Banchero, Griffin, and Keels, and then Wesley from Notre Dame, Smith from State. Those were the obvious 5 in that particular vote. Adam, man, anything else we need to talk about before we get to our interview with Bryan Kersey? Of course, we've got our Champions Watch still to come, a story and a bunch more, but anything else that we want to talk about before we head into the interview?
In the era of the transfer portal, should all freshman team be all newcomer team?
I think that's a good question, and I don't know. I wonder if they'll either change that or if there will be 2 different teams. But I don't know, are there really going to be 5 transfer? I mean, maybe. I do think that's something that is worth discussing. Now, would it have changed this year's team? I think it probably would have a little bit. I think Manick, I think Gardner from Virginia would have been a good choice in this hypothetical situation. So it'll be interesting to see if that does happen. I don't know. I think it's something to discuss for sure. Real quick, of course, Tar Heels number 3 seed in the ACC tournament. I mean, Adam, who knows? We talked about this on Saturday. How the Tar Heels respond after the emotion of Saturday will be interesting. They're not going to have the same level of intensity. Virginia is a possible opponent, and that's a dangerous team to not have intensity against because they are so clinical in what they do. It will either be Virginia, Louisville, or Georgia Tech that Carolina plays on Thursday night. So I'll have to wait and see. Reminder that we're brought to you in part by StubHub. It's the easiest way to experience every Tar Heel game. Check the virtual view, score your seats, get your tickets delivered instantly. StubHub is the official fan-to-fan ticket marketplace of the Tar Heels. StubHub. Be there. And one more, we're brought to you by LS Tractor, of course. Don't let your outside chores or projects cause you to miss any Tar Heel game action. Whether you need to mow it, till it, or move it, let LS Tractor make short work of it with their current offer of a free loader with your purchase of a tractor. LSTractorUSA.com is the website. Letter L, letter S, TractorUSA.com to learn more. LS Tractor, now you can do more for less. Okay, let's get to our conversation with Bryan Kersey. We'll come back on the other side. Adam has a list, have a quick story, and more here on the Carolina Insider.
There are a few telltale signs that springtime and the ACC tournament is in the air. The birds are chirping a little more beautifully. The weather has warmed up. And most important of all, Bryan Kersey is on the Carolina Insider podcast.
Yeah.
How many years in a row is this now, Bryan? 3, 4?
This is my 6th, so it's got to be at least the 4th.
Yeah.
So we've had a good time. We've had a good time.
So far, let's try to keep it going.
Well, it could change by 11 o'clock.
How do you feel like this year's gone in the world of ACC basketball officiating?
It's typical season so far. I mean, it's crazy. Anybody can win. All the games are close. I mean, it's just been, it's microscopic, especially from my standpoint. My guys are in tune to what they're supposed to be doing. But the games come down to each possession, and we have to be really good. And on some majority of those plays we've had a couple blips in the road, but nothing that's going to take us off the course we're trying to get to, and that's to Brooklyn.
Bryan, just before we get started with some in the weeds type of questions, can you, if this is the first time that somebody has heard our discussions, can you give us just a quick overview of your role within the conference and kind of what a typical night this time of year may look like for you?
I'm supervisor of men's basketball, refereeing. Came off the floor after the 2015-16 season and took this position from John Clockerty, who was a great mentor to me. Built a staff, kind of rebuilt some things, got some new people in, got some new blood in, and now, we go through each night of our games. They're all very visible on TV. All of our games are, shown all over the place. I watch every single game that we play, every single whistle that our referees blow, and I try to critique them. They get graded out on all of their whistles. They get video clips from me. We're in an alliance with the Big East and 9 other leagues. So, I mean, we built our staff through attrition of people coming through our system. It's a typical day for me is to wake up and usually from about 8:30 until about noon, it's clipping plays and sending out to officials that we have, probably from 12 to 2, they send back their responses to those plays. They learn from them. We discuss them. At some point in those times, I get phone calls from coaches or clips from coaches, and we discuss those clips and why I think they are a foul. And sometimes we agree to disagree. So we do a lot of talking with interacting between coach and myself. They don't like all of my referees, of course. But they tolerate them as long as they have to for the 40 minutes in the game. The optics of our league are very good because of the class of our coaches, and our officials have learned to communicate a lot better, probably since I came off of the floor, I guess. But, a typical day here is crazy. And then I usually go home about 2 or 2:30 and then come back I have an office here that has 6 TVs. And if I'm not going to a game, then usually on Wednesdays and Saturdays, I'm in here. I will go to games, when we have minimal games within our alliance. I will go to some games so I can see them. But if I'm at one game, something's always going to happen at another one. So it's a lot easier for me to see them, everything that happens from here, so that if a coach does call, I've already seen the play. I've already clipped the play. I get 8 angles on every play, which is great. So if a coach is reviewing a game that he's got the TV feed on, just for an example, then I've got each baseline camera, I've got overhead cameras, I've got slash cameras that I can see. If our officials go to do a review, I get that exact review. DV Sport is a great system. We're one of the only 2 leagues in the country that have the system that we have that shows all 8 angles. And that includes the TV feed. In the past, some things would get shown out over TV that our officials never got. And now we have a camera, or we have a spot on our review that shows exactly what's going out to everybody in the country. So it makes it a lot easier. I can see every angle that they punch to go to that review. If we have a flagrant foul, if we have a 2 or a 3, or we have a play that we just really need to just go look at to make sure of, especially at the end of the game or an out of bounds play, I can see exactly what they're looking at. And it's helped us tremendously this year. It's helped me a lot because every game that they work, they have to learn something and they have to teach something. And we try to communicate that to all of our people. We have some very good, less experienced officials coming up through that many people have seen on games, just to show the depth of our league. And, we try to build for the future, but we know we have to take care of each day. So, we've got some great veterans that have led us to this point, and they got to get me through basically 10 more days or 9 more days, whatever it is, to get me to through March the 5th and get me to Brooklyn on that Monday.
How often do you get clips or questions from coaching staffs? Are there coaching staffs you're going to hear from after every single game? And are they more trying to get you to agree with them, or are they just trying to get an explanation of why it was the way it was?
A lot of our conversations are based on positioning of our officials, and normally our big misses are based on positioning and where our eyes are. So that they will call, they will send me clips, and honestly, I probably get a clip within, the leagues that in the ACC, I get maybe a coach will clip something once a week and send it to me. And for a whole game, he may send 3 clips. There's no coaches that would send more. There's some that are just called because they know the system that I have. And they'll say, can you look at the play at 15:50 of the second half or 2 minutes of the second half and let me know your thoughts? And then we'll discuss them. And I'll say, this is why this is a foul. And I will tell them that we missed it. And I think they appreciate that. I try to make sure that when we're off of the phone that every question has been answered. And if we miss it, then I'll tell them straight up that we miss it. But they also listen. If I say we got it right, I'll tell them why we got it right and what the defender did wrong, or what the offensive player, if he initiated the contact going in, or if they ask why this wasn't a whistle, I'll say, honestly, I don't know. Or I'll tell them this is why it wasn't a whistle, because your guy drove into the defender, caused all the contact, and that happens. But by the time we get off the phone, it's usually pretty good, especially with the guys in the ACC, and they listen, and we have normal discussions. We don't have yelling discussions, which is always good. And it doesn't start off, they never start off bad, and they usually end good. Now there's some spots in the middle that they may disagree with, what I see on the play, and then they'll tell me, and I'll tell them straight up, we can agree to disagree, but this is my opinion.
Bryan,
the respect level is there.
How did we've talked about review and replay multiple times when we've spoken over the years. How do we avoid getting to the point where I think baseball gets bogged down, where it's, if his fingertip is off the base for a millisecond, then he's going to be out, even if he beat the throw, whatever. How do we avoid getting into those type of delays and that deep into the minutia of things and just let the game occur?
Well, I think officials get ourselves in trouble. We try and preach a term called clock awareness. Back when I was on the floor, except for my last 4 or 5 years, we didn't have all of this technology at the court. And so we go and review too much to put 1 or 2 tenths of a second back on the clock. Now, there are situations where the clock continues to run, but we need to know what it was supposed to be. We have to know what the shot clock is and the difference in that and the game clock. And I think if you look at the majority of our reviews, it is to see what the clock is supposed to be set at, or if it doesn't start or something like that. And we may not pick it up. Our guys may not pick it up for 15 seconds. And that's a problem, because that means they're not aware of what's going on the clock. Now, these shots that are especially transition 3-point jump shots that we don't know if they're a 2 or a 3, then I think that we have to do them. But, we look at some things that we probably don't need to look at, especially when it comes to clocks, because they don't know the answers, and they have to get better at that part of their game. And because clocks will get you in trouble. And if you're not aware of them, we've just got to train these guys as they come up, especially the less experienced that are going to have this technology, which is only going to get better as we continue. And everybody will say, well, they put 2 seconds back on at the 3-minute mark of the first half. What does it matter? And then we have a last second shot at the end that's in their hand, and they could have had 2 other seconds. So that's but they got to know it. They need to be able to turn to the table and say, all right, put the shot clock on 28, put the game clock on 3:02, and let's play. Don't go over there and take the toggle and look at everything, put the stopwatch on there to make sure you get the exact 10th done on it.
When you say that many of the calls that are missed are due to positioning, I think most people understand what it means when a player is out of position, but what does that mean? How does it happen that an official is out of position, and how does that affect the way they see the game?
Well, especially on like plays at the basket that are called by outside officials, they have a lot of times they'll have that are going away from them. They'll have a defender between them and the offensive player, and all of a sudden they'll come up with a foul, and they can't see and I'll ask them, where did the contact occur? And they say, well, I thought. Well, once a referee says I thought, it's usually, we're not smart, and referees aren't smart enough to think anymore. So that's one of our biggest problems that we have, is calling fouls on plays where we cannot see the contact. And that causes big problems throughout the game, because coaches now know, because I talk to them and they'll call me about a play that's similar to that. And I'll say, there's no way, if you stop it at this point of this video that we're looking at together, there's no way that you can tell me that referee can see this contact when his whistle blows. The other one is 3-point shots taken from the wings, where the referee on that side will stay on the sideline instead of coming out on the floor, so they can see through them, so they can see if contact happens on the wrist, or if, the offensive player kicks his leg out to cause all the contact. Sometimes they'll get complacent and just stand there, and they have to be able to be mobile. And once they become more mobile, then they get in the better position. But you can miss a lot by refereeing. We call it secondary coverage. If you referee better in your secondary coverage than you do in your primary coverage, you're probably going to have a problem, because you have too many whistles coming from the wrong spots. We tell them we want the correct call coming from the correct spot on the floor. If we have double whistles, that's fine. There's some gray areas that we can have, but our biggest problem is not seeing the contact and thinking it's a foul.
Bryan, Carolina had a game this year where there were 6 total free throws taken in the first half, and then more than 30 taken in the second half. That doesn't make sense to me. How a game could to suggest that the game got that much more physical, or changed that dramatically from one half to the second. Would that be something that piqued your interest or bothered you if you saw something like that?
Well, and so I went back and looked, and that game, if you look at the speed of the game, that game started out as if two teams were pretty much just kind of seeing what each other was going to do. It was like, they're familiar with each other, but they just didn't want to pick it up. And then the second half, the speed of the game and the defensive pressure, I guess, kind of extended. I think both coaches went into the locker room and said they're starting their offense too close to the basket. They're getting in too close to the basket after first pass. We need to push them out some. And then they started pushing out. Instead of taking jump shots, we ended up going to the rim. We ended up having contact on plays. And I think that's what caused most of that to happen.
There was also a game this year the Tar Heels were involved in where it got a little hectic in the arena. Stuff was thrown out onto the floor. It got kind of ugly. How do you talk to your officials about trying to keep calm and manage a situation where it has gotten pretty intense in an arena?
Well, when situations like that happen, when everybody jumps up, normally a referee has an issue going on. So when stuff starts coming down on the floor, you just kind of got to back away, take a breath, and realize, hey, you know what? There's probably something that we have a problem with, or that we've done wrong, that we need to make sure that we get together, discuss everything that's happened to that point, and make sure that the rest of the game is finished on a good note, and then get the heck out of here as quickly as possible before you get hit in the head with something else, because it does not feel good. Quarters hurt when they hit you. Quarters hurt. Full cups of ice hurt. All that stuff. We hate to see that happen. We preach optics of the game, but when everybody jumps up on things, normally an official needs to realize that, and our guys do, that something's gone wrong, and they need to change something that's going on and get together and just kind of forget the past and work to get to the next play and get it all straightened out, get the ship righted and go forward. And then, like I said, as soon as that horn blows, get the heck out.
Is there?
I mean, I've been hit with quarters. I've been hit with cups. If I get hit with money, I usually used to pick it up, put it in my pocket. Ice cups never felt good. Water bottles half full don't feel good, but you know, it's where we are now. Most of our arenas, our fans are very, you know how fans are in the ACC. They love their team and they root for their team when it gets to that point. You know, that's not what our league is about at all. I mean, that happens very, very rare because of the alumni and the donors that are at these games. And we hate to see it happen, but you know, we do realize it's going to happen from time to time, but you know, we just have to make sure it's minimized and that we don't create an atmosphere that's unsafe for the players and the coaches.
Is there such thing as an A officiating crew, and do you try to match an A crew to an A game?
You know, we really don't. I mean, do I think there's A crews out there? Absolutely. But, you know, we play 7 games every Saturday this year in the ACC, and I have A guys on every one of those games. Some of those games will have 2 A guys on there. And then we have some less experienced guys that are cutting their teeth and learning as they go, that are doing a very good job, you know, to create depth on our staff. And I think that helps us to be able to show that. I think all leagues want to show, you know, we have so many games that are played. All leagues want to show their best officials out there. But if I put 3 A's on a game on a Saturday, that's going to create some issues somewhere else, then I need an experienced person on there. So if something happens, then they're going to take care of it. And, you know, when I was coming up, I had, you know, some of the legends that worked that if somebody got fired up at me, which as y'all know was rare, then you know, that person always handled it. But, you know, these less experienced guys have to get in these arenas that are full, have to get in these intense games to be able to be that person a couple of years from then that is now the experienced person in that game. So, you know, all of our games are hard. You know, we have certain parameters when we go to assign people to games. You know, you can't work a team but a certain amount of times. You can't work them in a, you know, 8-day time frame. So everybody rotates through the league so that everybody gets to see everybody so that they become familiar with each other.
Bryan, for the first time in history, earlier this season, Carolina had a female referee for a men's basketball game. How many female referees are starting to get involved in the alliance of conferences that you work with, and how much more frequently can people expect to see this occurring in the future?
Well, I mean, we hired 2 this year. You know, I have my dad, of course, was an NBA referee for 30 plus years. So I have a very good relationship and understand that game. I spent a lot of time, you know, preparing for I knew this day was coming, and I knew that there were females out there that were very, very good officials. So the 2 that I hired, Jenna Renault and Claire Aubrey, I followed for about a year and a half. You know, they are in the G League. They do referee men's basketball. They both actually, because of COVID issues, ended up working multiple NBA regular season games this year. They come down to college and work with me as well. They're both very versed. They're both very good. If they're good enough, then I'm going to hire them. And if I think that they fit in with my staff, I think they're going to hire them. We had a lot of interaction with multiple female officials throughout last summer. And, you know, they go through a grind because it's different for them. But, you know, the 2 that we brought in are very, very, they both are athletic. They're both in phenomenal shape. They're both eager to learn. They both love men's college basketball. You know, they each worked multiple games for us. I have another female that referees in the Atlantic 10 as well. So there's 3 that are in the Atlantic 10 and 2 that are in the ACC. And I think do I think there'll be more coming? Absolutely, I do. They get the same look that The guys coming, within our system that are coming to try and get in the ACC, they get the exact same look that the males get. It's been a very good for our staff to have them there because of the people that these two girls are. And number one, they're phenomenal people, but they're really, really good referees that get a whole lot of plays right. And I look forward to them being with us for a long time.
The job of fans is to complain about officials and say, well, if these officials could just do this and this right, then this game would be perfect. What do officials complain about? What do they think if they could fix this thing, everything would be a lot better?
I think the biggest thing that we have issues with is carrying on normal conversations with players and not with. I think our conversations with coaches actually go pretty good. And, of course, they get heated every now and then, but sometimes players' conversations cause more problems than coaches' conversations because sometimes players don't want to listen. We don't have that big of an issue going on right now, of course, but our communication has to get better with these players. We have some guys, that can go up to a player and talk to them and they'll sit there and say, yes, sir, I understand. And then we have some that they just don't want to listen to. But I mean, that and communication with table personnel, I think is something that we have to get better at. I don't think we go out there and talk to them enough. I don't think we let them become part of our game because it's a part of our game that we can mess up. Usually when we talk to them, something has gone wrong. So that is one thing that is probably discussed after every game is dealings with table personnel, which is usually caused by referees not doing their pregame work with them. I think we'll get better at that. Fans are great. They're going to yell at you. Most referees don't hear half of the stuff that's yelled at them except during timeouts. So they don't really get involved in that. I just think that, our games come down to, a 10-second possession or a 30-second possession. And if we have gotten to that point with interruptions based on what is going on at the table, then I think that we've created a problem that we have got to in the future fix.
All right, Bryan, speaking of fans, we asked if any podcast listeners had some questions that they would mind sending in, and we got a couple that are good. If you're okay with that, then we'll go through a couple of these. This one comes from John Crisp. John said, could Bryan please discuss whether the threshold for establishing a legal guarding position has changed in recent years? It seems to John that there are a lot more charge calls these days that used to be blocks. Is there no longer any requirement that a player has to be set to draw a charge on the ball handler?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions that fans have is now the game has changed to where legal guarding position is 2 feet on the floor facing the opponent, and the defender can move lateral or obliquely. And I think that's part of what has happened. And fans think they have to be sitting there. They have to be stationary. They have to be outside the restricted area, of course, but they can still move. So a play going to the basket could easily result in an offensive foul when both players are moving, especially as long as the defender beats the offensive player to the spot or the offensive player does not initiate the contact coming back at the defense. So I think that's a thing that fans don't understand. I don't think some announcers understand that either because, you hear him on TV saying he wasn't set, he wasn't sitting there. That's not the rule. These guys, the defenders can move. They can, hands out. They can't put 2 hands on them, but their hands are out and their body's moving, that they're allowed to do that.
Bryan, this one comes from Daniel, and Daniel says he's noticed recently that teams with the lead in the last few minutes of a game will not collect the inbounds ball for 5 to 10 seconds after the opposing team makes a basket, effectively running some extra time off the clock without the ball in play. Daniel was curious if delay of game warnings could be given for this. Could referees start the 5-second count before the inbounds ball is touched when the teams are obviously, in his opinion, using this as a delay strategy?
The last minute, the last 59.9, the clock stopped. So,
right.
So the officials will normally go get the ball because the defender's not going to pick it up. So we'll usually go get the ball. So that doesn't really cause us any issues. The problem is from 1 minute to probably 2 minutes that they don't do it. And officials have started now because we've had these discussions to go get the ball and get it to them, or they'll blow the whistle and stop it. We're not going to, if the ball's rolling around the court or rolling around, then we're not going to start the count. Now, if somebody will be sitting there leaning over and won't pick the ball up and they're out of bounds, we will start the count. And they will start counting out loud. I agree that sometimes we do allow too much time to run off the clock without blowing it, but I think that's very rare in this day and time.
Bryan, this one comes from Gary. He was wondering if you could talk some about contact in the post and why a post player who is on offense, has the ball, is allowed to bang into a defender, back him up under the basket simply by using weight or size to continuously slam into somebody to back them deeper into the paint.
What was his name? Gary?
Gary, yes.
Gary's exactly correct. He's not allowed to, not supposed to be allowed to do that. And there are times when we do allow that to happen. It's happening less right now at this time of the year because we have gotten on them and we have sent clips out showing that this is happening. It's not nearly as bad as it was a few years ago where we had a couple teams that had guys that would start on the wing and just take you all the way down. The defender can use his forearm, to protect and to put on the hip or the back of the offensive player, but we do have some that will lower that shoulder or take one hard dribble back to create separation, and we've got to do a better job of getting that play called.
It seems like people always get confused when the NBA has a certain rule and they just assume, well, I'm sure college basketball has that rule. Is it time for college basketball to have a clear path foul? And how do you tell your officials when they're over there at the TV reviewing a play, how do you want them to delineate between the various types of flagrant fouls and those types of things that they can call on players going to the basket in the semi-breakaway situation?
Yeah, we've got to have, and our guys are pretty good at it. They're all directly behind them and they just reach and put both hands on their waist. Then normally we will get that. The play that is different is if you're side by side, you take one hand and you reach across the front and then you push the guy minimal to the side, then we're not calling that a clear path as the NBA would. But I think we've gotten better at that. We might have a couple that go on that it's the reach first, and then the fans, that's all they see because it's two players there, and he's not going to get to go all the way to the basket. Our coaches understand it. The ones that we miss are the ones where they're behind them, but we have done a lot better job with doing that. I don't think we need the new rule because then I think it just puts more. I think we're going to call it the exact same way anyway, honestly. I don't think it's going to change the way we call it.
I don't know if you know that. Do you know how many total fouls have been called? I mean, is that something that you keep track of or have that information?
No, there's TV shows that keep it. So I figured I didn't have to keep that anymore. Well, no, I don't know how many have been called. I know there's been a lot more rebounds this year than in years past. That's a play that, and the only reason I know that is because we send a lot of clips of rebound plays, and that's another positioning play, that we try to harp on and get in proper position to referee rebound. So, I kind of track some rebounding statistics as the year goes on and get a number on a certain date. I think I got a number last week across the country just to see what trends were, going on out there. But I don't track number of fouls because, we have some teams that foul a lot. We have some teams that don't. We have of those teams that I don't perceive as fouling a lot. Some of our coaches think they do. But, you know, the one thing that I can say is I haven't had too many coaches call me and complain, you know, that we're calling too many fouls or we're not calling enough. There's been we've had some stretches where we've had some in games where, you know, you might have 5 minutes where it gets a little out of control. And it's like referees have said, you know what, I'm going to take a couple of minutes off because I'm tired. I need to get a Powerade or something at a timeout, and the game gets too rough for a little while. And you know, I'll let them know, watch the game from the 11-minute mark to the 7-minute mark, you know, and watch how the physicality increases. I think we got to stop those. But, you know, coaches have been, you know, I haven't had any coaches calling saying, you know, we only shot 3 free throws and they shot 4. I think we needed more whistles in the game because, you know, I think errors of omission are better than errors of commission. So if you're, and like I said, all of our stuff is charted. I have 5 people that watch all of our video, and we call them NCIs, which are no call incorrects, which are plays. Now, earlier in the year, we were struggling with NCIs, and we've gotten it under control now where we're getting the body bumps and the hand checks a little bit more frequently than we did. We're getting the, you know, the swats. You know, the guy goes to, instead of going to protect the rim, he goes to block the shot. And a lot of times they go to just to block the shot and they swing and the guy moves and end up making contact either with his body or with his arm. So, I mean, we've reduced NCIs dramatically in the last month. I think we need to continue that, you know, through, you know, the end of the tournaments and get them to the NCAAs and see where we go from there.
One thing that I consider myself to be very good at is forming an opinion on things that I don't really have all the details on. And
Good, I like that.
So one thing that I've said recently that I don't really have all the facts on is it seems to me that in a multi-million-dollar business, it might be time to have full-time officials. Why? What are some things I don't know that might make it not make sense to have full-time officials? Because it seems to me they're the only folks out there who aren't full-time.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that come into play when you use full-time. That now you're talking salary positions, you're talking employer-employee relationship, where right now it's independent contractor. You're talking benefits, you're talking, you know, everything that, you know, expenses, everything that comes with that now. And I think that puts us on a different level. You know, the majority of our guys have full-time jobs, you know, that they go to now. During basketball season, of course, it's, you know, I've owned an insurance business for 30 years and I could travel when I wanted to because I had 2 great partners. Some of our guys are insurance people. Some of our guys are, you know, work on software sales. Some of our guys work in the fitness side of this. I just think that if we go and we try and say, okay, you're going to work in the ACC and you're going to make this amount of money, we're going to give you, it's just hard to fathom given the expenses of benefits and everything else to these guys and paying all of their expenses. I just think that puts us on another level. I think what the NBA does with their people is great. And I think that the way that we handle it is good as well. And honestly, you know, we have so many referees that are known on a national stage, meaning what I mean by that is I work very well with Mike Eads, who was one of our former superstars that I trained and created and got him to where he is today, by matter of fact. And Curtis Shaw, who is the me of the Big 12, and we all work very, very close with each other. To make sure, because a lot of our guys work in those leagues as well. A lot of their guys work for me. And we make sure that, you know, if somebody is at Georgia Tech, just for a school, and Auburn's playing the day before, the day after, or 2 days later, we can send them there and the referee can get there and rest. You know, if, you know, it works out really, really well. Our coaches can see our guys too many times. And it's only a certain amount of times you're going to go to the well in a single season where, you know, our guys don't referee any school 7 times, but maximum is 7 times, and none of them do that. So I think over more than that would cause an issue. If we have full-time guys, they're going to see guys 10, 11, 12 times, in the season. And I just don't think that's good for where we're getting to. I also think that it's not good for our up and coming officials, our less experienced ones that, if I have somebody at Carolina one night and Elon is playing the next night, and I can put one of our veterans with, a middle guy and a young, less experienced official in the game at Elon, then that person learns and they can advance through as well. I just think it makes our training stagnant. If we do it that way, I think it puts a big expense on our league if we go to full time. And I just think that the position that we're in now from a referee standpoint is really, really good because of being able to work multiple leagues and being able to train less experienced officials and giving those less experienced officials a chance to get to work our games.
Dumb question, dumb idea, Adam. Sorry, Bryan. Sorry you got to deal with these dumb ideas.
I'm going to tell you this. When I was on the floor, if they'd have said, Bryan, we're going to give you $200,000 and we're going to give you health insurance and a car, I'd have gone. I'd have asked for an RV and a driver, but I'd have gone.
2 more things, at least for me. And I'm sure I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Sure.
Do teams get reputations within the officiating community of, man, this team fouls a lot. Man, this team is known for their defense, so they don't foul very often. Is that ever occurred in your mind?
I think that you remember what happened the last time you had that team. And I think that is part of the discussion. I really don't think our guys sit in hotel rooms watching games on their nights off. Honestly, I really don't. I never did. I mean, I just didn't. And I don't think reputations are built that way. I think they take each night because, as you could have one night where a guy gets 40 and then he gets frustrated, the next night and gets 4. So I think we know going into you can tell what kind of defense is going to be played in the first 5 minutes. Now, do you know Syracuse is going to play a zone? Yes, you do. But their zone changes. So based on who they're playing, if they're playing somebody that takes a lot of threes, they push it out there. They move their players differently. If they play a team that pounds it inside, you'll see it's much more confined. It's just, if you have teams that run the whole game, I've told y'all this many times. My least favorite player of all time was Ty Lawson because all he did was run. I hated having Carolina games. You knew going in. So, yes, that team had a reputation that I knew I was going to be tired at the end of the game. But, these guys don't sit around and call each other and say, hey, last night this guy did this. I don't do that. I want them to take the game at each night as it is presented to them without having any kind of preconceived notion going in. Let's see how this is going to happen. Let's let this game play out and then take it from there.
I ask you this every year, and so at least the last one for me, what are some things that you think need to be looked at once this season is over? Any rules that you have piqued your interest that you think, man, maybe this is one we need to revisit or figure out maybe a different path moving forward?
I honestly believe that, and I would say this, I wasn't on the rules committee. I was the coordinator that they asked questions to for the last 3 years. I would give my insight to different rule changes that they were going to make. The rules committee is really good. They go very much in depth to everything that they want to do. I really would like to say to them, let's leave our game alone. Let's let everybody figure out how we're playing right now, because maybe it will eliminate some of the training videos that we have. Maybe it will eliminate, the NCAA, doing 14 or 15 training videos going out, me doing 5 or 6. Maybe it will help us to just get the game. I think our game is in a great spot. Don't get me wrong. I think our game is great, and I'd like to leave it right there and let everybody get used to the game as it's being played, because as you mentioned earlier, fans don't understand what has changed over years. So let's let them also because they're a huge part of our success. Let's let them understand how our game is going to be called, the rules of our game, and let's just sit back and watch it evolve to something that is now incredible and can only get better.
Great stuff from Bryan Kersey. As always, we appreciate his time. And a reminder that our interviews are brought to you by the Independent Insurance Agents of North Carolina. Texting while driving takes your eyes off the road for about 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's like driving the length of a football field with your eyes closed. Trusted choice, Independent Insurance Agents of North Carolina want you to stay safe behind the wheel. Put down that phone while you're driving. Let's have a hands-free NC. To learn more, find an agent near you. Visit trustedchoice.com/GoHeels. We go from there to our UNC Health Champions Watch. Great weekend for the Tar Heels in total. Adam will recap that for us after I tell you that it's brought to you by UNC Health, dedicated to caring for champions of all kinds and to help keep you in the game and at your very best. UNChealthcare.org/sports, the website, UNChealthcare.org/sports. Adam, as I referenced, all kinds of Tar Heel teams successful this weekend.
Really good weekend for baseball. They got a sweep of Coastal Carolina, which, of course, is a good team. Diamond Heels had 2 walk-off wins in that 3-game series. Really playing well, and they open ACC play already this coming weekend. They're going to start out with Pitt in Chapel Hill. So if you're not headed to Brooklyn, you got a chance to see some ACC baseball. Women's basketball, of course, you know by now. Crazy game against Virginia Tech in the ACC tournament quarterfinals. Tar Heels had a great shot by Eva Hodgson to send it into overtime.
That was a really well-designed and executed play.
That was a nice play. Our girl, Alyssa Usby, with the assist on that play. But Tar Heels lost in overtime, so they're now awaiting NCAA tournament futures, which will come out. They've moved the women's show to Sunday, so both the men and the women will find out this coming Sunday their NCAA tournament destination. Men's lacrosse got a good win this weekend in a game that was nuts. They won 17-16 over the number 20 team in the country, Denver. Jones Gymnastics Corner, the gymnasts got a win at LIU.
Yeah, they really dominated that dual meet, Adam. Saw a lot of season high and career high scores. Our girl Elizabeth Colton got a 9.975, if I'm not mistaken, on the beam. That means her routine, one of the judges gave her a 10, the other one gave her a 9.5, or 9.95, excuse me. So 9.975, big time. Saw, I think it's Emily Sumney had a really good meet as well, a veteran gymnast for the Tar Heels. She had a great score on the vault, and I think one other apparatus as well. So the Gym Heels keep doing it.
That was part of a bunch of wins on Sunday. Women's lacrosse beat Northwestern 20-9, beat them handily. And women's tennis thumped Virginia. Virginia's ranked. Carolina won that one 4-1.
Ho-hum, women's lacrosse and women's tennis still awesome.
Just doing what they do.
Yeah, just beating everybody per usual. Quick reminder about that online auction for the Roy Williams Fast Break Against Cancer. That goes till March 11th. What is that? Friday at 11 p.m. So you have all the way until Friday night. UNCHF.org/fastbreak. UNCHF.org/fastbreak. Adam, why don't we go to your list?
What's on the top of Adam's list? Brought to you by Top of the Hill, where Tar Heels come to celebrate.
A lot of fun things on the list. Several people pointed out Cam Johnson impacted by the power of the pod.
Oh, yeah.
He was on Friday's pod. You listen to it during the day. You turn on the TV at nighttime. There's Cam Johnson putting up a career-high 38 points and the game-winning three-pointer right at the buzzer. So, look, anybody else who wants to be on the pod and then go out and have a career night and make the game winner, just let us know.
Yeah.
DMs are open. Ben Meredith took some time to make a fun website. It's CoachKHomestreak.com. I don't want to spoil it for you, but I suggest that you check it out. Congratulations to Jordan Stone. He is in the 100% club. Jordan, we appreciate you listening. I wanted to mention, because I don't think we've mentioned, that one of my favorite Big Gritses is the version of Big Grits at the Duke game. That version of Big Grits, like, that's the Big Grits 12-year-old Adam imagined.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just to set the scene for one portion of what the story Adam's going to tell. So Adam, Big Grits, and I were all going to meet at an undisclosed secret location because parking was at an all-time premium over at Duke. And so we were all going to ride together. And so Adam was already there, and then Big Grits and I got there at about the same time. And, of course, Big Grits is going to drive because, A, he's our dad, and B, like, Big Grits needs a Big Grits-sized vehicle. Like, Adam and I have normal human-sized vehicles. Big Grits has a Big Grits vehicle, of course. And so he's going to drive. So I kind of park next to Adam. We both get out of our car, walking towards Big Grits' vehicle, and Big Grits, totally unprompted, gets out of his vehicle and begins, remember when Hulk Hogan used to, Hulk up Adam before he, dropped the leg on Andre the Giant or whatever? It was like the low bicep flex. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. And, the Coach Williams kind of a little bit similar to the, come on, Coach Williams defensive crowd. But flip the arms the other way and act like you're flexing your biceps. That's what Big Grits gave us totally unprompted on Saturday before the game. For no reason.
And I immediately wondered, people driving by, what do they think's happening right now? Or do they just know it's Carolina Duke Day and Big Grits gets fired up?
Yeah.
Big Grits gets fired up about going into Cameron Indoor Stadium, and I want to give Big Grits full credit. He called the Tar Heel win. He called it earlier in the day on Saturday. He said Carolina was going to go over there, and they were going to defeat the Blue Devils.
He called it.
Not in so many words. I also really enjoyed, we were having a text discussion about the COVID protocols and what did we have to do and what did we not have to do. And there was this website. Did you have to fill that out? And Big Grits immediately replied, he ain't checking in for nothing for Duke. It was such a fierce response to a fairly not that fierce topic. That really set the tone for the day. I feel like the Tar Heels caught some of that Big Grits energy.
Yeah.
And they weren't going to check in for nothing at Duke either.
I'm going to tell you, trying to get through the pregame campus-wide party that was going on with Big Grits was a challenge.
Yeah.
He did get mistaken for Jay Billis one time. That makes both I and Big Grits have been
That's right.
mistaken for Jay Billis.
Not me yet.
What an honor. Well, you get mistaken for Eric. So I think it's like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I think you have indeed been mistaken for Jay Billis.
Big Grits almost signed an autograph in a Duke book of legends or something. And right before he put pen to paper, the guy was like, "Oh, wait a minute, you're a Carolina guy.
Wrong guy." Like his friend, like his wingman, his goose was came running up from behind. Wrong guy.
That's not Crawford Palmer. Tell him to put that down.
It's not Eric Meeks.
So I just really enjoy
Greg Ostertag.
I enjoy that version of Big Grits. That only 364 days of the year, Big Grits
363.
The nicest guy. I think it amps up at camp.
Oh, it does amp up in Durham for sure.
Nicest guy in the world. But those 1.5 days, you're getting angry, Big Grits.
Man. Yeah, it was great. This also, the rare game where, when Brady Manick hit that sideline 3, Big Grits gave me the, forearm me while I was calling the game. He made it. I got a couple of those from Big Grits during the game where, he body blocked me because he was happy that the Heels had done something right. Oh, man. Adam, do you have anything else?
That's it.
Okay. I need to find this really fast. We have a story that we're going to read from Candace, which I want to read in just a second. But I also wanted to circle back around, Adam, to Pat Tessmer. Remember Pat?
Yes.
Okay, I found it. Okay. So you may remember Pat. We were a little worried about Pat.
Right.
We had taken an arms cross serious face, which I've never seen the picture. Oh, did he? Oh, no, never mind. Here it is. He did send it to us in the email. It's his jacket is so incredible.
So shiny.
So this is actually could be a full story to me, his initial email. So we're not going to read the whole first email, but Pat said he was sitting there at RDU waiting for his flight back to Omaha late on Tuesday night. Because if you remember, Pat from Omaha, America's heartland, Chapel Hill, Midwest, came to the State game, Carolina at State, and then the Syracuse game back to back. So he made the trip. He and his dad took the opportunity to go to 2 games in 3 days to see the Tar Heels play. Again, great email from Pat that I don't want to go through all of it because that can be a story time later on. But we mentioned a couple pods ago that we took the arms crossed serious face with Pat at the State game, and the plan was to do it at the Syracuse game as well. We saw Pat before the game. I was already on the air, gave Pat the give me just a minute and we'll knock it out. And then when I was done with my pregame stuff, he and his dad were gone. So, update. Guys, I can't believe my blunder. I just finished listening to the pod after dark on our flight from Raleigh to Chicago. Jones, I thought you were too busy to get a pregame picture. We decided to go on up to our seats. Why I didn't wait down there for a while was just a flat-out silly mistake. Did my excitement of being in the Smith Center for the first time since 2017 get me antsy? Potentially. Was it the energy in the air for senior night that got me up and moving? Possibly. Was it simply the buzz from a few pregame Blue Cups? Probably. And Pat says, it would be an honor to receive a pod sticker. Thanks so much. So, Pat, we're glad to know that you and your dad are doing okay. All reasonable explanations as to why things got wonky there before the Syracuse game. Okay, now that we know Pat's fate, I'm going to let you quickly adjust the volume and listen to an ad.
Speaking of arms crossed pictures, we took an arms crossed picture with a baby on Saturday night.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Adam, I'm going to tell you, I totally forgot that happened. That was here.
Yeah, at the Smith Center.
I don't know how many people were here, but there were a couple dozen people at the Smith Center when Adam and I got back to come do the emergency pod that were here to meet the team afterwards. It was great. And I didn't even catch this gentleman's name that we did the arms cross with, he and I'm assuming his 3 kids, one of which was a baby.
I was trying to explain the scenario to my wife, and I said, hey, we took an arms cross picture with a baby. And she said, well, did they let you hold the baby? And I said, no, but Armando Bacot held the baby. And so she then thought Armando Bacot was in our picture holding the baby with the baby's arms crossed and our arms crossed. That wasn't the case. 2 separate pictures. Yeah. You can only have so much incredibleness in one picture. But we sure did. That baby crossed his arms, and so did we. And I think that was a first.
Okay, real fast before we wrap things up. Roots Natural Kitchen on Franklin Street, rooting for victories just like you. Reminder, every Friday during the month of March, Roots Natural Kitchen going to provide lucky listeners a gift card to the Chapel Hill location for every Tar Heel victory through the week. Go to our Twitter, the Carolina Insider Podcast Twitter, noon on Friday for your chance to win. Roots Natural Kitchen, a fast casual restaurant serving great tasting, natural, and affordable salads and grain bowls while striving to promote healthy options. Who were our winners? I remember Jen Farrell was one, Carly Kane was one, Tim Wise. Those were our 3 winners. Carly, Tim, Jen, congratulations. They were our winners this past week.
You don't have to use your gift card to buy us lunch, but if you want to, that's fine.
And if you don't win, it was Miles. It's Miles who chooses the winners.
Yep.
So if you don't win, blame Miles.
Miles messed up Tim's email address or
Thought
Twitter
you were
account or
social
something.
media ace, Miles.
Yeah, I thought I'd never made a mistake.
No big deal.
We almost had to give away 4 gift cards, and we're lucky that other guy didn't contact us.
No big deal. Just find the right Twitter handle, Miles. Thought that was in your job description.
Miles saved it, though, by making the incredible Pod After Dark graphic.
That is a great graphic. All right, Adam, we're up against the time here, so let me read our story, and then we'll get out of here. Candace Morgan sent this one in. Always great to see Candace. We see her when the Tar Heels go out west.
Right.
We see Candace a lot. Okay, Mr. Goosehonkers. Mr. Goosehonkers has been sleeping off a big party this weekend, so he's finally up and moving. Stretch those wings out because Candace's story starts like this. Candace says that today, this was sent on Saturday, is the first time I get to see one of my best friends in a couple of months. So I made a point to bake her some protein-packed muffins yesterday. As you can imagine, making these muffins was something I cared a lot about. She gave us a little backstory about some of the challenges that her friend had gone through recently, and so this was a display of affection for Candace to her friend.
You might say it was so classy.
Oh yeah. This was me trying to feel helpful in a helpless situation, not something I was doing simply to distract myself from the pregame jitters. Candace had even made a special trip to the store to get the supplies. As you know, Candace has young kids, so nap time was my window to bake. Said muffins were due to come out of the oven right before tip. Naturally, what up, Candace? She listened to the pregame radio show as she baked. Apparently, Candace was so appalled listening to Jones. Really, you could stop that sentence right there, and there's a lot of people going, yeah, I know what you're saying, Candace. Describe Coach K's procession through the tunnel of horrors. Ooh, another good potential hashtag there.
TM.
That she lost her focus. About 40 minutes in, my husband turned to me and said, when are those muffins going to be done? They were only supposed to bake for 10 minutes. Immersed in everything I hoped for, really close game at that point, I said, ooh, I already took them out. Either that or they are burning. Candace still waited till a commercial break before she checked. Oh, Candace had, in fact, accidentally turned the timer off, got out the oven mitts, but in her Duke-a-Palooza disgust, had walked away, left the muffins in the oven without a second thought. So Candace went, got the mitt, turned the timer off, and forgot to do the final bit of the transaction, which is actually take out the muffins. She took out the burnt muffins and went back to the game. At that point, I was doing my best to focus on the way our team was playing without being too distracted by the way ESPN was airing the, quote, Coach K curtain call special. I mean, did we really need a banner at the top with 2 still photos of K and the picture-in-picture live feed of Coach K that ESPN was showing on a third of my screen throughout the entire game? Hashtag, how can you justify that? With the shorter intro open, which was Candace's idea all along. Her house smelled of burnt toast. And at the point where it looked like Duke was going to pull away, I thought to myself, now Coach K's ruined my muffins.
How many people have said that sentence?
Thankfully, that was not what the night had in store. Instead, I got to rush out and buy my almost 4-year-old the chocolate cake with sprinkles I had promised her if the Heels won. Side note, in my postgame delirium, I left my phone at home recording the postgame coverage to be enjoyed after we put the kids down to bed. I had to ask a slightly confused Californian waiting in the bakery department to Google UNC Duke to get the score to put on top of the cake, which Candace sent us some great pictures of. The cake was moist and delicious, a little crunchy sprinkles that somehow were extra satisfying to chew, sort of feeling like crushing all of those Cameron crazy dreams with every bite. But forget beating state brownies. I will always remember how nothing has ever tasted good as these burnt muffins. Adam, great story from Candace. And you had a good idea, Adam. You thought we had such success with the 82 game stories. We thought maybe people could send us in some stories from the Coach K retirement party day.
And I think that's fun off-season stuff. I mean,
we may not get to it right now, yeah.
But certainly not just limited to if you were at the game, but where did you watch the game? Who'd you watch it with? What happened before, during, after the game that you're always going to remember whenever you think about this game? We'd love to hear those, and you can email them to carolinainsiderpod@gmail.com or DM through all the various social methods.
Thursday, late, 9:30. I think we're on the air at 8:30. I think that's right. For Carolina and either Virginia, Louisville, or Georgia Tech in the ACC tournament. We will only have coverage of the Tar Heels on the Tar Heels Sports Network. I know in the past, which ended a couple years ago, we used to do all the games, or at least from a certain point of the tournament on, only doing the Tar Heels. So we'll be there with you on Thursday night, and then as far as Carolina goes, and then we'll be with you, of course, when the Heels play in the NCAA tournament as well.
You think Tar Heels are off the bubble?
Don't ask Jerry Palm. Adam, anything else?
No.
Okay. For now. Remember, this is the only pod this week. We're back next week. We'll have a lot to talk about, obviously. For now, let's let Bryan Kersey and the RZA get us out of here on the latest edition of the Carolina Insider.
This is Bryan Kersey signing off, and even though we were told you got fouled all the time, we called way too many to put you at the free throw line for a 20% career free throw percentage. See you later, Big Grits.
When I was small, we had nothing at all. We used to eat grits for dinner.
Pound box of sugar and a stick of margarine. A hot pot of grits kept my family from starving. Steamy hot meal served less than 5 minutes. Big silver pot, boiling water, salt in it. House full of brothers and sisters, the pot's missing. Pilgrim on a box on the stove in the kitchen.
When I was small, we had nothing at all. We used to eat grits for dinner.
See you later, Big Grit.
The preceding has been a Learfield presentation of the Tar Heels Sports Network, presented by Give UNC, Carolina's annual Day of Giving. Make this March 29th a day like no other by supporting the causes that inspire you the most.